to another stream. We just finished watching the game with Italy and Spain, and it was okay. I think Spain played better than the results suggest, which is weird from the last game where they didn't play that well, but the result was amazing. But we'll talk a little bit about that. Dom, welcome.
Oh, thanks, Dev. Yeah, it was a good game actually. I enjoyed that one. It was a game between two tactically good sides, and you always love to see that. It ended with a weird goal, like an own goal, and I feel like own goals have been a big theme of this tournament so far, which is kind of weird, but it's a shame, really. It's a shame because at the same time, you see the Spain team play the way they play. It was good fluid football. It was attacking football. It was quick. It was direct. It was also with purpose, and it felt like they deserved more than an own goal to win this game, right? And I know it's just a aesthetic. Let's put it that way, because it doesn't matter. They got the 3 points. That's all that matters. But at the same time, you always feel nice when your good game is rewarded by an actual goal, like that comes through your efforts. Not that this didn't go through their efforts, but you know what I mean. So that point is kind of not so nice. But at the same time, I think Spain earned their 3 points, and they are, as of right now, if they can keep this up, they are one of the favorites of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think Germany and Spain, those are the two teams that have actually looked like teams who are playing good football like that from that perspective. So I agree with you. And I don't know, I think it was troll football where I was saying that Todd Bowley is
Mhm.
going to, he's going to offer about some gazillion dollars for own goal, for signing up own goal for Chelsea. So that was a joke that was going around on Twitter. So yeah, own goal has been doing pretty well in the Euros this season. But yeah, let's come back to the game. Obviously, this De La Fuente side is different from the Luis Enriquez side, but somewhere the game has been fluid. I mean, the two games that we watched, this is not like, yes, they're a little bit vertical, possibly,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
but it's okay. That's number one. That's what I felt. It was all right the way they were playing. And the other thing was, the other question that I had was around Nico Williams. I think
Mhm.
in both the games we watched him, and also Lamine to an extent, right? We are
Mhm.
expecting them to lead the line, and there's a lot of discussion around them, but they haven't been that uh, difficult to contain from a attacking perspective. Let's just put it that way. And they've also been profligate in the sense of missing opportunities. Like Nico missed quite a few today, I think, which I felt were definitely worth converting, and that can happen in football, of course. And even Lamine played very well once again. But do you think this can score 30 goals a season for Barca if they become the front line?
I'm not sure they're either of them is a big goal scorer just yet, but both have the elements of becoming a great goal scorers somewhere along the line. Lamine, of course, we do know more about him. We've analyzed him on the channel. We've written about him countless times already, and he has the ball striking. He has the intelligence, but also the athletic side kind of helps. I think Yamal has everything to be a proficient goal scorer somewhere down the line. And Nico today, I wouldn't say that he didn't have a good game. He had a great game, actually. I think Spain's wingers at the moment, so both Nico and Lamine, they are Spain's main game breakers. So that's where all, if not, no, so most, if not all, firepower comes from for Spain are those flanks. The way they can break the defensive line, the way they can reshuffle the players, the way their gravity affects other players is just immense. And I felt like Italy knew this going into the game. So what they did, they actually instructed their fullbacks, okay, you're gonna mark these wingers, but then they were dropping the wingers down as well. So you could see Chiesa dropping down. You can see on the other side, who was it? It was I can't remember. So they were both dropping deep and kind of trying to double up on the wingers because they knew if we're gonna stop this Spain, we have to stop the wingers. So that's where the whole threat of Spain comes from. And it's a bit, it's a double-edged sword because yes, Lamine is brilliant. He's going to be one of the best players on the planet. He already is in some categories, right? But at the same time, to have such a young player be such a big source of your firepower, I don't think is it healthy for the player at this stage of his career. That's the eternal question. But back to Nico as well. I felt like he had a good game. I felt like he had a really good game nonetheless.
No,
So
the game was good.
the,
He's a good player. My question is, are they good finishers? Can they lead a line? Like we're in Barca, we are saying that we'll get these people and all our problems will be solved. Can they actually lead the line and score 30 goals a season? That's the
I don't
question.
think they're.
They're great
I don't think
players,
that.
no questions.
Yeah, they're not currently 30 goals a season players. No, neither of them is at this moment. But I don't think they need to be, right? Um, do they what they bring to the table? I think it in Barca's case, it will alleviate the squad. I think that they're the profiles that you need to have, especially if Barca are going to try and play a bit of like Spain play right now. So it's not just slow and methodical. It's very direct. It's very quick. It's very on front footed, running at you, exploiting the space. I think that's the direction that Barca will go under Flick. I think having Lamine and having Nico potentially as your winger pairing is a good way to go, right? It's the right way to go because the profiles actually fit the purpose of the whole team of the what you're trying to accomplish, right? So it would be using the profiles like they're meant to be used. Now, is Lamine just a runner? He's not. Obviously, he's not. And in a sense, that's a good thing because if he was just another player who likes to run fast and that's all he does, it's a possibility that his game would not evolve as much, right? So now, because he's not the kind of player that will run at you across half of the pitch, that forces him to think a bit more. That forces him to be a bit more creative in the way that he deals with the opposition's marking, the way that he unlocks the deep blocks, and the way that he faces these challenges. He has to be more than just a runner. He has to be more than just someone with quick feet. He has to have a quick mind as well, right? He has to think, okay, how do I beat this guy? Do I go inside? Do I go outside? Do I even go for it, or do I go back with the ball and stop and set the tempo that way? So I think this way, the fact that Lamine is not your typical run, I'll run at you and I'll just be faster than you type of player, it will force him to become even better and improve even more. So I feel like it's a good thing. Now, again, they're not 20 or 30 goals a season type of guys, not yet at least. But the way they change the dynamic of the team, I think it will still be a huge net positive for me.
Yeah, sure. They'll definitely bring variety to the attack and so on and so forth. But if you look, like the league is just like 38 games, it's just, live by the day, die by the night kind of a situation. As you go into the season with the players that we have, you know, do they actually solve the problem immediately? I know we are pushing into that topic. We should be talking about this game, but that just struck me in both the games. I think the finishing just wasn't there. Awesome playing, no questions on that. Great playing, great assists, stretching the field, stretching the pitch, or what have you. It was all there, but yeah, the finishing, that was the most critical thing. That's just what we didn't see. Okay, let's go into some of the numbers. As Spain obviously had the majority of the share of the of the attacking in this game and so on and so forth. But what did you take away? What were your highlights of that stood out for you in the last 90 minutes?
So the thing I would say, I would agree with your lack of finishing issue, right? So that is a big thing. So Spain have been pretty dominant. They have been the side that controlled the game, that was the protagonist of the majority of that game, right? And rightfully so, because they did everything. Well, everything. They did most of the things right. Now, the finishing, we know how it is, right? Against Croatia, they had three great chances. They put away all three. Against Italy, they had more chances to score. Like they had clear cut chances. A couple of them. One was for Pedri. One from Nico as well. There have been chances to actually penetrate that structure and actually go up in goals, not just by one goal, but two or three goals perhaps. They've earned that, right? Now, tactically, what was more impressive to me than the attacking side of things was the way they improved in their pressing and their defensive side. They still are somewhat vulnerable if you go over the press, which Italy have been doing for the majority of the game. They would just go high to Scamacca. He would kind of reset the attack. He would hold off the markers, and then he would lay the pass into the runners. So that was one way to go over Spain's press. That was one of the solutions that they had. Now, that said, Spain made the adjustment from Croatia to Italy, and that was, for me, that's the biggest sign of their improvement, is how they reacted to, okay, that was flawed because we left too much space through the middle. We allowed Croatia to carry the ball into those spaces. Luckily for us, they didn't have the profiles to actually hurt us, but that was the issue. Now in this game, I didn't see that same issue because they had complementary pairings. So they had Kukurea, who was behind Nico, who was kind of a cover, a shield, and allowed Nico to be far more aggressive. Behind Lamine, you had Carvajal, who can be exploited at times, but he understands his role perfectly. So he knows when to go wide, when to go inside, when to stay deeper. And he's experienced like that. He knows when to do what and how to execute his role. Now, Spain also, they had this 4-2-3-1 type of press that went from this middle block into a high man marking press. And it was really, really good. It stifled the build up really well. And I felt like the counter press was also pretty good. So when Spain press high and when they have this energy, and a lot of it comes from Morata as well, because you will see these teams, big teams like England and France, they will have their forwards who are not as involved in the pressing and defensive side of things. But Morata, for example, for Spain, he's someone who's not had the best of games in front of goal, because sometimes that happens to Morata. He can have these oscillations. Sometimes he's really good, sometimes he's not that good, right? That's what happens to him often. Now, defensively, however, he will give a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of intensity in his press, and that always gives you a net positive, right? Because we've seen in this tournament, if you are a team that presses well, that's not too passive off the ball, that it wants to be proactive, it wants to be the protagonist off the ball as well as on the ball, you have a bigger chance of succeeding, right? And I think Spain have done that really, really well. And in those instances, when they press that well, when they transition from a counter pressing to attacking, or from just defending deeper and then exploiting forward, they do look like a well drilled side. Now, do they have an elite coach? I wouldn't say so necessarily. However, these players have a good idea of what they're meant to be doing, right? I always go back to England because England have a squad that's also filled with superstars, but they, compared to Spain, don't have that clarity of ideas, right? They don't know what am I supposed to be doing in every phase. While Spain, they know their strengths and they know how they're meant to be playing, and they're also fixing their mistakes. That's a big thing for Spain. If they keep this up, if they can keep this ascendancy going, I can see them as the favorites they're meant to be, Dev.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. But let's come back to some of the numbers here. 20 shots in total, 11 from inside the box, and conversion was an issue today. Also wanted to take your point of view on Jose Perez. Probably had the highest XG among all the players, and we have heard about how he can be part of some sort of a forward line for Barca. Every day we get one new player. What did you make of that?
Well, see, that's the thing with Spain. It's these players, they do get into positions to score, right? So they can create a lot because of all the things that we mentioned. Spain are very good at sustaining this pressure, and they will pile onto you. They will keep coming. They will have possession, despite this notion that they are very direct. They are more direct than they used to be. That's true, but they can still recycle the ball and then hit you quickly in a very direct and vertical way. So it's a bit of a mix of both things. And now if you have the players who can move well inside the area, who can actually benefit from having these elite creators, because that's what Spain have. They have elite creators. They have players between the lines. So I would, yes, okay. So players like Perez, they can be effective. They can get into good situations. But I also feel like it is more up to the players around them that have the quality, more so than him being the game breaker or the piece that is highlighted the most, right? So I wouldn't really necessarily highlight him the more than a Nico or a Lamine or a Pedri, because to me, they were the players that kind of create this foundation on which you can then get this high XG chances. And Spain, to be fair to them, they have been good as a collective, and that just goes to show you. And this Italy side, compare this Italy side to the Spain side, both teams are tactically really, really good. They're very similar because they both have this clarity. They both have good structures and sensible tactics. But when you compare the personnel for Italy and personnel for Spain, it's night and day, right? It's very, very different. It's in the quality, the difference in quality is huge. So in those moments when you have teams of similar tactical quality, this individual quality will then be the deciding factor. And I think that this, when it comes to these two teams, the individual quality is what separates them the most, because you look at this Italy squad and you see some names that might be impressive, some names that are maybe in their ascendancy, some players that you can recognize and say, okay, these are good quality players, but they're not at the same level as Spain. So I think the collective as a whole, as a structure, as a tactical identity or tactical being, so to speak, they're very similar. But then individual pieces of those two teams are very, very different. And yes, back to Perez, he's someone who fits well into that collective and is then enhanced by the collective. Whereas Italy, they do that to their players as well, but not to the same level as Spain. Doesn't really answer the question, Dev, completely. I got sidetracked, but that's kind of the gist of it.
No, I get it. Yeah, we're just jamming, so it's fine. Okay, couple of more things. Seems like the Pedri, Fabian Ruiz midfield is kind of working for Spain. I didn't think it would, but it is. And then Cucurella. This surprised me from the defensive side. I didn't expect that much of a shift from him, but it is a pretty impressive shift in both the two games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, it all comes down to how you profile the players and then how you utilize those players. Now, as long as Spain can use Cucurella in a way that suits his profile, which is more of a defensive-minded player, I think you get most out of him because he has the athletic base, he has the intensity, he has also the technical quality to be the overlapper when you need him to be, but not necessarily be the main wide outlet or the main width procurer, right? So he shouldn't be that. He had Nico ahead of him. Nico was a creative force. Nico was the one who kind of did all the attacking, and now Cucurella, he was mostly on defensive duties, and he was against pretty good players. He was against Chiesa, and he could handle that well because he had his task, and that task was suited to his abilities, to his profile, and that's all you need. When you misprofile players, when you play players in positions that don't suit them and positions that don't play to their strengths, then you just, there's no way you can optimize that player. And we've seen that example at Barca countless times, right? We've seen players who've been used in the wrong ways, and despite the quality of the player, if you use him the wrong way, you won't get the best out of him, right? So that's the whole thing. And I feel like this is the setup to get a lot from Cucurella, and we've seen it tonight. I think he was brilliant, actually.
He was brilliant today, and that at least in a solid defensive shift from that perspective. So looks like Spain's on to the next round for sure.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Spain's prospects now, given I think it's Hungary or Switzerland in that group. I think that's what we probably might do. Probably Spain might meet. We'll have to just check. And then based on that, how far realistically do you think Spain can go in this tournament?
I think I saw a post that said that Spain and Germany are due to meet in the quarterfinals if they both go through as first, which they will do, and if they both win in the round of 16, which they are expected to do as well. So they're due to meet in the quarterfinals, and I think that is kind of the final before the final. So Germany and Spain so far have been two of the most impressive teams. When I look at France, when I look at England, those were my two other, well, most people's other two favorites, but they have not been nearly as impressive. Maybe it's the opposition, because Germany had an easier time so far, but Spain had to face Croatia, Spain had to face Italy, which is, arguably, it is the group of death, right? So it is the group of death, and they've gotten 6 points out of it. Were they perfect? Not nearly perfect, but especially in the first game against Croatia, which they won 3-0, that was a far worse game than this 1-0 victory over Italy. So I think as things currently stand, if they can beat Germany in the quarterfinals, then I would say, okay, yeah, they have everything they need to actually win the whole thing. Now, will they actually beat Germany? That's a more difficult question. What I feel like with Germany is that Nagelsmann will have to tweak a lot more, and he'll have to optimize the team tactically far more than Spain do have to, because Spain have these game breaking profiles. I mean, Germany do have to. They have Musiala, they have Wirtz, they have Gundogan, they have players who are of differential quality. But when you look at the Spain squad, it has more to it, more firepower. Same with France as well, who rely on that individual quality a bit more than Spain, but perhaps. But I think Germany will have to be tactically much better than Spain need to be, just based solely on the individual quality of their players. So if Spain can get over Germany in the quarterfinals, then it's just that should be it. That should be done.
But Germany's not going to be easy with the way they're playing,
No.
especially. I mean, if you look at their midfield and the way Nagelsmann set them up, and also Musiala's having he's on form. Is like I love watching him the few games that he's been playing. So it's never going to be easy. But even then, it's not bad. Like quarterfinal, I think it's not a bad run if that's what it is from that perspective. What for Italy going from here?
For Italy, it's they have a tricky thing to do now. And it's Italy Croatia, right? The final game is Italy Croatia. They've shown tactically they've been good. They've been very compact and very conservative when they had to be. They were aggressive when they had to be as well. They dealt well, as well as you can actually expect someone to deal with Nico and Lamine. That was still the weak spot, but that's to be expected because Nico and Lamine. But at the same time, they've shown to be a capable tactical and structurally capable team. So I feel like they won't be easy for Croatia. And if they can beat Croatia and then Spain beat Albania, that would mean that Italy would go through a second, right? If I'm not wrong. So they do have a win over Albania. So they have 3 points now after 2 games. Croatia have 1. Albania have 1 as well, right? If I'm not wrong. I have to check the numbers. But it all hinges on the last game, right? So Croatia are fighting for the lives and Italy are fighting for the lives. So it's going to be a thriller, I think. It's going to be a very, very good game. I don't know who I lean towards more. I mean, obviously, I'm biased because I'm Croatian, but Italy have so far shown more, I would say, than Croatia Croatia have had a good second half against Albania, and they had a decent showing against Spain as well. But the tactics and the team selection have been really poor, and I feel like if something doesn't click or change in the final game, Italy might actually be the one to get to win that. And I've just noticed that our title says Portugal versus Czech Republic on the live stream.
Oh no!
Yeah, it does. So if anyone's tuning in,
because yesterday we were planning and we
yeah,
didn't do it. Yeah,
I know. So if anyone's wondering why we're talking about Spain and Italy, and it says Czech Republic and Portugal, yeah, don't worry about it. It's meant to be today's game. We're still getting the hangs of this. No, that's fine. Should be okay. But yeah, anyway, that's how I see it. I don't know about you. What do you feel? Do you have Italy or Croatia going through? Or I mean, Spain's now
purely on form, and then in the cup tournament form doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, I think Croatia's defense has been a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Seriously, a little bit. Right? I genuinely, especially with the game against Albania, right? I didn't think it would end that way. Especially in the second half when they took the lead, I thought they would be able to hold on to that. But the fact that they conceded at the death, that was weird. This Italian side, I personally feel they'll be able to shut out a game better than Croatia. Are they playing champagne football? No, but that's what I felt when I saw. So from that perspective, it would seem Italy has a better chance than Croatia. And I'm sorry for you, my friend. I would have loved that Croatia go forward. I mean that. But yeah, that's what I felt. But how about all these the smaller ones, right? Albania, Slovenia. Such great performances by so many teams. And what about the long balls, man? Every single game, every team has about 50% long ball percentage stats in this tournament.
It's I think it has a lot to do with just the structure and the aspects of a tournament, right? Of cup football, and then add to it that this is international football as well. It just, I think, going for these kind of attempts, right? It's not, theoretically, it's not sustainable over longer periods of time. So Albania, for example, they've gone through the qualification round purely with long shots and very, very low XG shots. So their goals were never meant to be goals, right? So everyone looked at that team. If you're an analyst and you look at that team and you're like, okay, this is not sustainable over long term. Now, it might not be. So if Albania were a club and they were in a league that had like 37 games or something, that approach would likely not be sustainable. However, when you have a cup tournament like that, we have a tournament like this where you have like 5, 6, 7, 8 games tops, you could get away with it, right? So going for such attempts makes sense, right? Because the reward kind of eclipses the risk that you have attached to it. So I feel like it's not that surprising now, especially when you have players who have great ball striking. We've seen Fabian Ruiz. I mean, that dude should have scored a screamer today. That was so close, and he's been on fire, to be honest with you. In the first game as well, that was a great shot in the first game, and now again. So it pays off to have profiles like these because they are the best profiles to actually break these stubborn defenses, because we've seen a lot of passive 5-4-1s in this tournament, or 5-3-2s, for example. Like, they like to sit deep, they'll play over your press, they're big strikers, and they will then run at you in transition. So that's their plan, and a good way to break these deep defenses, stubborn defenses, is through ball striking, is through long shots outside the area as well. So I feel like it's a good way to go in these cup competitions, and it makes sense, and it actually pays off sometimes, and you only need it to pay off sometimes in cup tournaments. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, so that was it. Like, I think the game was pretty awesome in terms of I think, yeah, as I said, Spain played better today, but the result didn't have that many number of goals as the game with Croatia. I think Albania would be a stern test. I think Albania will be
Mhm.
difficult than what Spain is thinking it's going to be based on what we saw. What would
Mhm.
be your take? I don't think it's going to be like a walkover, just like
Um,
that.
Albania are very aggressive. They've shown that they can be very aggressive and they go for it. And I feel like when you are the clear underdog and you're at this tournament that no one really expected you to be at this tournament anyway, so why not go for it, right? Why not go for it? What will you gain if you come here, after years and years of not going? I'm not sure if this is their first, not this not their first time, but it must be something like, they don't really do it often, right? Maybe I'm completely off here. I'm not sure, but I just, in my head, that's what I'm thinking. But anyway, so if you're a small country that kind of goes in as the clear underdog in the group of death, right? And if you play very conservatively, passively, just let the opponent have all the protagonism in the world, what do you stand to gain from that, right? So that's my thinking. If you're too passive and you do nothing, you're gonna lose anyway, right? So unless something happens, a lucky break happens, and you score a goal